So, my name is Chris, and I'm going to talk about occupational health and safety. So, in this presentation, I will talk about OHS, the Working Environment Law, some information about what I'm doing and some of the risks, some safety hazards, and some of my sources. The Working Environment Act is about work hours and employment protection. Basically regulations to make sure everybody who's working is okay and has a good job. OHS, Occupational Health and Safety, is to make sure everyone's safe at work. Nothing bad happens, no accidents. Even though accidents happen, if you're careful and follow OHS carefully, minimal accidents should happen. So, what I do, I do automation. That is basically making components communicate with each other through cables. So we have some components like contactors, which are there to break the circuit if something wrong happens. We have thermal relays, which is more to protect engines. And we have fuses, which a lot of you are familiar with. So, to understand some of the health risks, you first need to understand what Hertz is. And Hertz, if we just create something like this. So, this is, let's say, a meter to gauge electricity. So, Hertz is how much electricity switches back and forth. So, the heart is about 60 Hertz. But electricity in walls and houses is about 50. So, if you get electrocuted when you're working, sorry. If you get electrocuted while working, the 50 Hertz will affect how your heart is working. Okay. So, some of the health risks. You can get strained injuries from basically just using a screwdriver and doing the repetitive motion a lot. You can get stuff like lateral epicondylitis or tennis elbow. I know some people that has gotten it. I myself have nearly gotten it. You can also have, you can get electrocuted while you're working, like I said. If there is some bad wiring, some wires that maybe touching some metal and you're touching metal. And those electrical shocks, when they're long term, that's when you touch some electricity, you get it basically maybe through your hands. If you touch something, it goes through your hand, all the way through your body, maybe your heart, and most likely through your legs and exit. While you might only see a scar or something burn on your fingers and the exit wound, everywhere the electricity has passed through you will be burned. A former colleague of my teacher, this happened to, and when the wound got better inside her, some of the nerves and tendons fused together. So when she tried to bend her elbow, some of her fingers started to bend as well. She can't do anything about it, but every time she bends her elbow, some of her fingers do too. You can fix it, so that's why you have to be careful with OHS and electricity. If you get high enough current through you, you might get some scars that look like this on your body, or this is just on a piece of wood. But the medical term is Lichtenberg. It sounds a lot better than scar tissue you get when electricity passes through you, and it's a lot easier to say. So while electrical shocks can be long term, they are also short term, maybe a few days or a few weeks, months even, but usually days to a few weeks. And that's when we come back to the hertz. If you get shocked, the 50 hertz might affect your heart 60 hertz and throw it out of rhythm. So maybe your heart starts beating faster or slower. This can cause cardiac arrest, and you have to go to the hospital. That's why every time when you're working and you get shocked, you need to tell your employer that you've been shocked, and then you'll be taken to the hospital for 2 days about to be checked out and look at the heart. Yeah, and atrial fibrillation is what I said about the heart goes out of sync with the hertz. So some safety hazards which might cause some of the injuries are bad wiring, as you can see here. Here the wire isn't insulated, so if you somehow touch it, you'll get shocked. Electricity in itself is a safety hazard, and while you're working in automation, you will most likely work with big moving parts like robotic arms or robots in itself. You might get your hand or arm jammed in something, or something lands on. Okay, so before we finish this presentation, I think it's smart to talk about how to prevent some of these risks. Strain injuries you can get by doing repetitive motions, so you can prevent it by something just as easily as swapping your hands while screwing a screwdriver. You can just take a small break, let your hand or what you're doing just relax a bit. Electrical shocks are a bit different. If you work in a fuse box, you could wear some rubber gloves, but that isn't really practical. So the smartest thing to do is just turn off all the fuses so no power can come through it at all. And by doing this, you also cancel out the risk of getting atrial fibrillation. By that I mean heart glimmer. So to conclude, OHS is about making sure you're safe at work, you're not getting hurt or injured. The Working Environment Act is more about your well-being at work, to make sure you're not working too much, you're doing what your job is supposed to do, and just make sure you're all right. So there are health risks, as there is everywhere, but if you're doing everything you can to prevent them and following OHS, you should be all right. So these are my sources, and thank you.
Chris, have you been to practical training?
In automation?
Yeah.
Only at school.
Yeah.
I have been around at different places and looked at some of the automation.
Okay. How was your experience there? Are they concerned with OHS?
Safety is their number one priority.
Good. Yeah.
They're in Statoil.
Mm-hmm.
I was there in 9th grade, and you'd be amazed at how seriously they take safety. There are so many regulations and courses you have to take to just get in there.
And do you usually wear something every day, to protective gear or something?
That depends on the work. When I was there, I was an IT specialist, so I was pretty much safe working with computers. But if you're working with where there's gas, you might have to wear a full-on suit, some headgear, gloves, protective shoes, everything, the whole package.
Okay, well, thank you, Chris.
Hmm?
Well done.